Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Sarah and today we're going to be exploring an incredible group of birds. But there is something strange about these birds because unlike most birds, these birds cannot fly and we usually picture them living somewhere very, very cold. Today we're going to be learning all about penguins. Let's get into it. Penguins are an order of flightless birds with about 18 different species. We usually picture penguins living in freezing Antarctica, and while they do live there, they live in other places too. We also find penguins in South America, in Africa, and Australia, and on a bunch of islands in between. Most species of penguins are found in the southern hemisphere, so the area south of the equator. There is one species that can be found in the northern hemisphere, the Galapagos penguin. We usually picture penguins living in those freezing temperatures, but there are some that live in warm weather as well, like the African penguin. We're going to talk in a little bit about the different adaptations that penguins have to help them whether they live in a cold place or a warm place. Regardless if the air temperature is cold or warm, we usually find penguins living near ocean coastlines. And this is important because that's where they find their favorite food, fish. Most of the food that penguins eat are different types of fish, but they also eat things like squid and krill as well. To help them grab on to all of this slippery food that they love to eat, they have these backward-facing spines in their mouth and on their tongue to help them really grasp onto their prey. As we said before, all species of penguins are flightless. None of them can fly. And while they cannot fly, they are very good swimmers, which is pretty important if your favorite food is fish. They use their wings like flippers to propel themselves through the water. They also have webbed feet, but most of the swimming is done using their wings. And while all penguins are good swimmers, the fastest penguin is the Gentoo penguin, which can swim up to 22 miles per hour. And while the Gentoo penguin might be the fastest, there is a penguin that can dive much deeper than they can. The emperor penguin can dive deeper than any other type of penguin. They can dive more than 1,800 feet below the surface. That's as deep as if you got in an elevator and went down more than 150 floors. While penguins are very speedy in the water, they are not quite so fast up on land. Penguins have short legs and webbed feet, which make it kind of hard for them to walk. They do a bit of waddling or hopping, and the penguins that live in cold, snowy places toboggan across the snow, sliding on their belly. Tobogganing is really useful for penguins that live where it's snowy or icy because it allows them to move faster while using less energy than if they were hopping or walking. Now, the penguins that live in the warmer places cannot toboggan, and they're usually waddling or hopping along the coastlines. And scientists have found that this is not the only difference between the cold weather and warm weather penguins. Scientists have also found that penguins that live in warmer weather near the equator tend to be smaller, and penguins that live way down in Antarctica by the South Pole, they tend to be much larger. And scientists think that this falls into a trend that we see called Bergmann's rule. Bergmann's rule is a trend that we see with warm-blooded animals like mammals or birds, that groups that are related to each other, the species tend to get larger when you go far from the equator. So we see the smallest species right near the equator, the biggest species far from the equator by the North Pole or the South Pole. Let's take a look at our penguins. The largest species of penguin is the emperor penguin. They live way down in Antarctica, all the way down by the South Pole, very far from the equator. They're the biggest. They stand up to 3 feet tall. Now, one of the smallest species of penguins, the Galapagos penguin, lives right along the equator where it is warm and tropical, and that species only stands about 1.5 feet tall, about half the height of the emperor penguin. And we see this in other groups of warm-blooded animals as well. Let's think about the deer family for a moment. The smallest species of deer is the poodoo. They live right by the equator. The further we go, the bigger the deer get until we get to our largest species, the moose, who lives very close up by the North Pole, far from the equator. We see it with bears too. The sun bear lives right along the equator. They are the smallest bear. As we go far, 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 far up north, the polar bear lives the furthest, all the way up by the North Pole. They are the largest species. Scientists think that for warm-blooded animals, like mammals, and birds, like our penguins, the bigger they are, the more their bodies can trap heat inside. An animal that lives in a cold place, like in Antarctica, wants to be larger so it can trap more heat inside of its body and stay warm. Regardless if they live in warm weather or cold weather, most penguins have multi-layered feathers. They've got a very fluffy couple of layers underneath which help trap heat near their body to keep them warm. They've also got a smooth layer on the outside that does help to keep them warm, but also helps to keep them dry. Penguins that live in warmer weather have to make sure that they don't overheat. So during the hot parts of the day, they'll either spend time in the water where it's cooler, or they'll shelter themselves in shade or in caves, somewhere where they're going to be a little bit cooler. Penguins also rely on the color of their feathers to help them. All the species of penguins have a white belly and a black back, which is actually a type of camouflage called countershading. And to understand how countershading works in water, I need everybody to put on their imaginary goggles because we are going swimming in the ocean. Okay, imagine for a moment that you are swimming in the ocean and it's quite deep. And you look down and all you see beneath you is darkness. And if an animal swam beneath you with a dark colored back, you might not even see them. They might be hidden. Now this time, keep your goggles on, but we're going down to the bottom. And this time, take your goggles, we're gonna look up at the surface. And it is a bright, beautiful, sunny day. That sun is shining down on the surface of the water. Everything looks bright, everything looks white, and if an animal swam above you that had a white belly, you may not even see them. Countershading in water allows penguins and other animals to be hidden both from above and below. Countershading is especially helpful for penguins considering most of their predators are in the water. Penguins are preyed on by animals like sharks, leopard seals, orcas, and others. They do have some predators up on land, particularly their eggs and their chicks are preyed on by animals like petrels. Aside from camouflage, one of the ways that they try to avoid being eaten is by using safety in numbers. Penguins often live and nest in very large groups called colonies. Let's take another look at these colonies and particularly those eggs and chicks. Most penguins nest in huge colonies with sometimes hundreds or even thousands of penguins all nesting in the same area. How they attract a mate or how they build their nest definitely varies a little bit between species. Some penguins, like the Adelie penguin, make a nest out of rocks, and they'll use rocks as a gift as a way to attract a mate. Other species, like the Magellanic penguin, they will either find a burrow or make a burrow and use that as a safe place to lay their eggs. Meanwhile, other species, like the king penguin, they don't even make a nest at all. Instead, they just carry their egg around on their feet. Most species of penguins have 2 eggs per breeding season, but some species only have 1. As chicks hatch from their eggs, they are covered in adorable white fluffy feathers, so they are warm, but not waterproof. They're not able to swim, and they are fully dependent on their parents to bring them food so that they can grow big and strong. As they get a little bit older, a little bigger, a little stronger, some species will kind of put all of their chicks together in a group called a creche, which is kind of like a penguin daycare. Eventually, when those chicks get big enough and strong enough, they develop that outer layer of waterproof feathers, and finally they're able to go hunt on their own and become an independent penguin. Penguins sure are designed to overcome some serious challenges. However, one challenge that's becoming a very large problem for them is climate change. Between climate change and habitat loss and loss of their food source, many species of penguins are threatened with extinction. By visiting our website and exploring our conservation corner, you can learn more about the threats they face and the things that you can do to help. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today to learn all about penguins, their incredible adaptations. If you'd like to learn more, do quizzes, activities, projects, be sure to click that link below, visit our website, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye!